Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Warning: this video may contain explicit descriptions of drug use, violence, and sexual situations. Viewer discretion is advised as this content may not be suitable for all audiences.
Hello and welcome back. We are continuing our journey through Kingdom of Fear by Hunter S. Thompson. We have where we last left off was during the riots during the '68 Democratic Convention in Chicago. So, without further ado, let's get into this.
Others tried to flee down Balboa towards State Street, but there was no escape in that direction either. Just another wave of cops closing off the whole street in a nicely planned pincer movement and beating the mortal shit out of anybody they could reach.
And not to justify, but what the cops did was right, or I'm not going to condemn them for saying it was wrong. The grunt cop was doing what he was told. Now, the people making the decisions, I don't know, maybe the mayor of Chicago and other people involved, they need to be condemned. But as far as the tactics, they started out good, but as the chaos built up and there was no after action planning, everything fell apart and it became a quagmire real fast.
The protesters tried to hold their lines, calling back and forth to one another as they ran away. "Stay together! Stay together!" I found myself in the middle of the pincers with no place to run except back into the Blackstone. But the two cops at the door refused to let me in.
Yeah, that's interesting because in the last video I had mentioned Warren Ellis's comic, Transmetropolitan. There's a couple of issues in there in which there's a riot outside of a police station and the cops aren't letting anybody who's trying to distance it, who's peaceful or whatever, to lay down their arms and leave and get out. They just, and it's not the same riot at the beginning of Spider Jerusalem's story. It's probably just past middle, not quite 2/3 of the way through his story. But that's what, I think that's where the inspiration for that particular thing came into play in the comic.
They were holding their clubs out in front of them with both hands, keeping everybody away from the door. By this time, I could see people getting brutalized within 6 feet of me on both sides.
Yeah, I imagine that leads to some nightmares.
It was only a matter of seconds before I went under. So I finally just ran between the truncheons, screaming, "I live here, goddammit! I'm paying $50 a day!" By the time they whacked me against the door, I was out of range of what was happening on the sidewalk, and by some kind of wild accidental luck, I happened to have my room key in my pocket. Normally, I would have left it at the desk before going out, but on this tense night, I forgot, and that key was salvation.
Probably saved his ass from one hell of a beating by a nightclub.
That, and the mad righteousness that must have vibrated like the screeching of Jesus in everything I said. Because I did live there. I was a goddamn paying guest, and there was never any doubt in my mind that the stinking blue uniformed punks had no right to keep me out.
But they were going to do their damnedest to do it.
I believed that, and I was big enough to neutralize one of the truncheons long enough to plunge into the lobby. And it was not until several days or even weeks later that I understood that those cops had actually planned to have me beaten. Not me personally, but me as a member of the enemy.
Yeah, the enemy. Yeah, I like how he explains that, you know, the me as in the enemy, as anyone who's not a cop. You know, the line from the 1982 Blade Runner, if you're not cop, you're little people, comes into play here.
That crowd of outside agitators made up of people who had come to Chicago on some mission that the cops couldn't grasp except in fear and hatred. This is what caused me to tremble when I finally sat down behind the locked and chained door of my hotel room. It was not a fear of being beaten or jailed, but the slow rising shock of suddenly understanding that it was no longer a matter of explaining my position.
Because explaining, all that does is open your mouth to get hit in your mouth when it's open.
These bastards knew my position, and they wanted to beat me anyway. They didn't give a fuck if the Democratic National Committee had issued me special press credentials. It made no difference to them that I'd come to Chicago as a paying guest, at viciously inflated rates, with no intention of causing the slightest kind of trouble for anybody.
Just doing his job as a reporter.
That was the point. My very innocence made me guilty. Or at least a potential troublemaker in the eyes of the rotten, sold-out scumbags who were running that convention.
Yeah, that was, that is, if you want to look at incompetence in a political party, that era, probably from the time that Lyndon Baines Johnson announced...
Mayor Richard
I hit the button on accident. Before Lyndon Baines Johnson, and when he announced that he wasn't going to seek the nomination for presidency, all the way up through MLK, Martin Luther King getting killed, RFK, Robert Kennedy getting killed, all the way up probably through the election of Jimmy Carter. I mean, yeah, the Democrats, you know, shit themselves there.
J. Daley of Chicago, Lyndon Baines Johnson, then President of the United States. These pigs didn't care what was right. All they knew was what they wanted, and they were powerful enough to break anybody who even thought about getting in their way.
And that is kind of what they're doing today. Not on the Democrat side, but it's things change, you know. It's like the line from the Rush song 2112. Changes never last, but change does. So, you know, it is, you know, you can never count on things staying the same.
Right here, before I forget, I want to make what I think is a critical point about the whole protest action of the 1960s. It seems to me that the underlying assumption of any public protest, any public disagreement with the government, the system, or the establishment by any name, is that the men in charge of whatever you're protesting against are actually listening, whether they later admit it or not.
Yeah, that's that is a realization that a lot of people don't have.
And that if you run your protest right, it will likely make a difference. Norman Mailer made this point a long time ago when he said that the election of JFK gave him a sense, for the first time in his life, that he could actually communicate with the White House. Even with people like Johnson and Mac Bundy, or even Pat Brown or Bull Connor, the unspoken rationale behind all those heavy public protests was that our noise was getting through and that somebody in power was listening and hearing and at least weighing our protest against their own political realities.
Yeah, and that's how it goes. People in power want to stay in power, and they're going to do what they got to do to stay in power. Whether it's smash you in the head with a billy club, or see what you need, try to help you out. That's just what people in power do. Anyone seeking power, I don't care if it's local, state level, national level, or international level. People seeking power cannot and should not ever be trusted.
Even if these people refuse to talk to us. So in the end, the very act of public protest, even violent protest, was essentially optimistic and actually a demonstration of faith, mainly subconscious, I think, in the father figures who had the power to change things.
And it did for a while. One thing about America that you can go through and look at our history. And if you take an objective, and that's the key part, an objective look at American history, right before we have a gigantic social advancement, social, economic, you name it, before we advance as a society, we have a shit ton of violence, protests, riots, people in the streets, cops doing stupid shit, killing people for no reason, you know. Then that all boils over and boom. I mean, just look at George Floyd. Yeah, my brain locked up and I had a whole bunch of names running through my head. I had to look it up. Yeah, George Floyd, Maurice Gordon, Michael L. Thomas, William Wayne Burgess III, and the list goes on and on. Jonathan Price, Anthony Jones. And now cops are actually being held accountable. Like they should have been from the word go, but they're actually being held accountable now. And that is, it's good that they're being held accountable. The sad part is all of the pain, the suffering, the crying, the tears that have to be shed before we get this change in this country. We have, for some reason in America, we have to blow up in order to settle down, in order to get our heads right, for whatever reason. And the 68 DNC convention, no different. That was, yeah, it's just, the deaths of Martin Luther King, Bobby Kennedy, you can even go back as far back as John Kennedy and say he was the maidenhead that was broken that started the whole thing. And you look around what we go through today, and it's not pretty, but on the other side of it, once we get through it, we should be good. Hopefully we'll be good. Hopefully. Fingers crossed. So, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up here. We're going to have to call it a day. Until next time, be a good human. Be good to other humans. Peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?